Good afternoon. It's good to be with you all again, and I welcome you with all my heart. All is well, all is exceedingly well, and everything is unfolding exactly as it should. These are the words that my second guru, Robert Adams, opened every satsang with, and this is Robert's class. We've moved out of Infinite Way into Robert Adams, it feels like. Joel Goldsmith was my first teacher through his books, and then Robert Adams, then Rashneesh, Bhagwan Sri Rashneesh was my first guru, and I spent some time with him, and then I was back in this country and I was led to some of Joel's students, and then Robert Adams showed up in my life for 5 or 6 years, and after that I was led back to 3 or 4 of Joel's students, or Joel's students, and my job for the past couple of years has been to integrate all of that. Truth is truth, and the difference in the messages between various teachers or gurus is the audience. Robert used to look around the room and just look at every person, which I did a few minutes ago, and feel the energy. I know today why he did that. And, there's a feeling from each of you that's different. And today's class will be whatever you draw from this speaker. And we'll see where it goes. I have no format this time. I've prepared no outlines. We have no lesson plans. We have a topic title, but that's as much as I know, and I'm just as interested as you are to hear what the class is about. I know quite a bit about what it's going to be because it's been unfolding for 2 or 3 weeks. Got a card from Dulcie down in the desert. It's unfolding down in the desert too. We did a class a year and a half ago on the principles of the infinite way, and we all learned, we went over very thoroughly, extensively, we went over what those principles were and stated them all very clearly and made sure everybody heard them, and that led up to the mind work, which I got the formalization of from Margaret Johnson, and once we got the mind work, our pots were so thoroughly stirred that we had to stop hearing new stuff and let that settle in and cook. And it's been cooking now for a year. And it's really been a riot for me to watch this stuff, to watch what's happening. I mean, it has been cooking, and we do have a center here. This is definitely a spiritual center now. We are an Infinite Way center, or a Advaita Vedanta center, or whatever type of center you want to call it. I don't know what to call it. We are a center, and there's a lot of energy here, which is lifting us all and bringing us to the next level of our teaching. And there's a reaction to it. Hermosa Beach has turned into a wall-to-wall sports bar, and I think we can all claim responsibility for that. There wasn't a hint of that a year and a half ago, and as we get more and more focused and more into the silence, the world must get crazier. Those who can't be here have to be there, and so when you go down there and look at that, that too is a result of this. And there's a lot of centers all over the country. I'm in touch with 2 or 3 of them, and the same sort of message is coming everywhere right now. There's just a great deal of this work going on, and we're just a small part of it, but we are a part, and every part's very important. 1 of us can transform a community. 10 of us can transform the city. 100 of us can transform the country. Don't try to understand anything that's said today. Above all, don't try to figure it out. The intellect is the problem, not the solution. It is not the way to the answer. The movement from Maya to mysticism is the movement from intellect to intuition. It's the movement from mind to realization. And intellect is rational, realization is totally irrational. Everything that's in the mind is contradictory, it's contrary to the nature of mysticism, to the nature of reality. Mysticism is just the word for having a mystical experience, which is that experience of realization of your oneness with God. There's nothing mystical about mysticism at all. It's just the realization of oneness with God. And that is the whole point of the infinite way, to lead us to raise us to a place where we can have that experience. It's the whole point of Rashneesh's teaching. He did that by stirring pots and sort of forcing everybody to, sticking his finger in open wounds is what he really did. Anything you held sacred, Rashneesh would trample on until eventually you got the message that either nothing is sacred or everything is sacred. If you're in the material world, nothing's sacred. If you're in the divine world, everything is sacred. It's all God. And Robert Adams' whole teaching is Advaita Vedanta, and Advaita, non-dual Vedanta, the truth from the Vedas, from the old rishis and sages from 3000 BC. Non-dualism. All there is one. We wound up with close to 25 principles last year, infinite way principles. And we're going to summarize them now. The principle that we work with now, which is all 25 of those, is all there is God. All there is God, a loving, harmonious God. And God is consciousness. God is spirit. Now, these are words that we can throw out about God, and don't let your mind crank up. Don't try to figure out what they mean. But that's our principle. And what we're doing really is we're getting the groundwork right now. We're stirring the pot again. We're getting the groundwork right now, and this is our work for this year. The work for this year is to move into the mystical experience and start living from there rather than from Maya or mind. The purpose of this class is to let you see clearly what the nature of that journey is so that we know what our task is for this year. And possibly we will have a little bit of the experience itself. And we'll see how that goes. All there is God, and God is consciousness, and God is spirit. If God is the only reality, then God is the only creator. And God's creation is consciousness, is spirit. It can't be anything else. You can't get anything out of something that isn't in it. If God is all consciousness and spirit, then God's creation is consciousness and spirit. And that doesn't include materiality. That doesn't include atoms. That doesn't include things. That doesn't include all the stuff that our five senses reports. Let's look at the revelation that Margaret Johnson had. Margaret Johnson asked God, what is mind? Now I want you all to look around. Look at each other. Look out at the ocean. Boats all the way out as far as you can. Imagine that this is night now and you're looking up in the sky, the black sky, and you're looking at stars that are billions of light years away. All of that. And what I want to tell you is you're not looking at that, you're looking at your mind. It's all mind, your mind. Everything we're seeing is images in mind. And that was the revelation that was given to Margaret. And that's exactly the nature of Maya. Maya means mind, means the images that we're seeing that we believe are material reality, the things that we believe exists. We are, if there is one thing that everyone in this room is absolutely convinced of, it's that I am here. I am sitting here. This is me. I'm sitting here. I'm out here seeing all this, all these material things. I see all these people. I can touch it. I can all that. This is the one thing that we are all fundamentally intrinsic at our very core convinced of. And this is the lie. This is why Robert refers to Maya as the grand illusion. This is the lie. If you go to a movie, they give you a real nice light show on a screen with great sound now. You notice how they add more and more sound and get the sound fuller and fuller to involve your second sense more intimately. And what they do is suck you in, and you believe it. You get all caught up in the reality, and your emotions react to it, and you get excited, or you cry, or you get angry, or you get whatever you get. People are getting killed on the screen, and wars all over the screen, and you're all involved in this. And they've got your second sense involved. But really, there's always a little bit of distance for you because, you can always feel the chair. You always, hear other people around you, and you smell popcorn, you don't smell blood, you smell popcorn. You see blood, you smell popcorn. And you taste Coke. The illusion is not complete. The problem with Maya is that it involves all five of the senses that you think are the totality of your five senses. You think that, if obviously in the movie, if you went up to the screen and felt the screen, you would not be able to grab the person up there or the cannon or whatever was on the screen. You would touch screen. And here we have a different problem because we think, well, I touch hassock here, or I touch people, or I touch whatever I touch, and I can smell it and I can taste it. And we use that as the thing which convinces us that it's real. Because, I understand that I see a movie and it's not real, but I can go up here, I can touch you. I can smell you, and so I know that you're real. And this is our definition of reality, you see. We think that if all five senses agree, that we have reality. And I suggest that if you have a dream, if you're dreaming at night, you go to sleep and you have a dream, and in that dream you're in a city somewhere, and you're in a house, and there are people there, and you have conversations with them. They all have their own independent conversations. You don't know what they're going to say. They say whatever they're going to say, and you have a reaction. You watch yourself react, and you walk up and touch them, and you're having this dream which involves all five senses. And I wander through there, and I say, this is just a dream. There's really no reason to be excited about this. It's just a dream. And you say, oh, no, it's not a dream. Look, I can touch you. And you come up and you touch me, and I say, no, it's just a dream. And you say, well, look, I can pinch you. And you pinch me, and I say, ow. And you say, see, it's real. It's not a dream. And I say, no, it was a dream pinch and a dream ow. But the fact is that all five of your senses are involved, and so you're convinced that it's real. And then suppose you tell me you're dying of cancer, and I say, well, don't worry about it. It'll be fine when you wake up. And how can you be this way? How can you be so cruel? How can you be so unconcerned? And there's no reasoning with you. You're convinced. And then you wake up. And when you wake up, it's really very clear that that was a dream, isn't it? Very clear. There's no doubt in your mind that there was a dream, that was a dream. In spite of the fact that all your five senses were involved, in spite of the fact, perhaps this conversation that we had in this dream went on for an hour or 2 hours or 5 hours or 10 hours. And perhaps as we did it, we drove across the country. And then you wake up. You've been asleep for 1 hour. The psychiatrist had the meter on your head. The dream and the REM lasted for a second and a half. 10 hours in a second and a half. Villages, houses, where are they? What happened to them? Where did that time come from? Where did that house, where did that space, where did that village go? It was all created in your mind, in your own personal mind. Well, what I'm telling you today is it's all a dream, folks. Wake up. It's all a dream. Joel talks about if you fall off a boat and you're out drowning in the ocean, you'd pray to God. You'd pray, God, drain the ocean, or God, send a boat, or God, do this, if you're in a house burning, you'd pray for water. When you're in the ocean, you're praying for dry land. Now you're in a house, you're praying for water. You're praying to God for all these things, and anybody who's outside of here would very clearly see that, wrong prayer. What you should pray for is to wake up. Waking up is the solution to these problems. Getting out of the water puts you on the desert island. Now you're starving and you're praying for food. Along comes a boat and takes you back, and there's your wife or your husband married to somebody else, and now you've got a problem to problem to problem to problem. And the fact is that the correct prayer is to wake up. When you wake up and know that all of this is just a dream, just a fabrication of your mind. When you have that distance from it, then you drop all concern. Then there's no longer a problem. It's very good that we have dreams, because dreams are a hint that allow us to see the possibility of all this. Our own mind is capable of creating time. It's capable of creating space. It's capable of creating other people who act of their own free will. It's capable of creating a version of us which acts of its own free will. Notice that when you start a dream, you don't begin the dream right there. You come into a dream, and although the dream did start right there, according to the psychologist's measuring devices, did start at this second, you're suddenly in the dream, but you have a history. I mean, it's not like you've just popped into existence right there. If somebody in the dream comes up and asks you where you were born, you'll have an answer. You'll talk about your parents. You'll talk about your history. You'll talk about where you came from. They'll have a history. So in this dream, even though it did start right now, there's a history. There's just everything that happens in this world happens in a dream. The mind is capable of creating time. The mind is capable of creating history. Does the image of you that's in the dream have free will? Is the next question. Who determines what that person? Ask the person in the dream. If somebody came up to you in the dream and said, "Do you have free will?" You'd immediately say, "I can do this," or "I can do that." But that you in the dream doesn't exist. What determines whether it has will or not? What determines the choices it made? Was it really the dinner of the dreamer that's determining the actions of the people in the dream? Perhaps you had something bad for dinner and it's causing this dream. What's really determining the choices these people are making in the dreams? Is it some unfulfilled fantasy that you had in waking life? these people are in the dream? Are they robots? What are they? It's all I'm trying to give you the sense, because this is no different than that. It's a little more believable. It seems to be longer term, although your dream could have been a 10-year dream. It seems to be a little longer term. From another viewpoint, if you look at the explanation that we get today about how we see all these things, where do the images, assuming the reality of the material world, where do the images come from? Physics would have us understand that light reflects off an object, and the light comes back, and it comes into your eye, and it strikes the retina. And what we're talking about now is photons with a particular frequency, and therefore a particular color, striking a retina. And when they strike the retina, there's a chemical reaction. And the chemical reaction causes nerves, neurons to fire, synapses to fire, little pulses to go up neurons, and presumably these go into the brain. And so we've gone from little particles of light with a particular vibration to them and a particular color, certainly not anything like this. We're talking about little particles of light getting converted into chemicals, getting converted into nerve relays, turned into electronic signals, going inside a brain and floating around in there. And that's all the brain has ever had. All the brain has ever had is nerves firing, neurons firing, synapses firing, little electrical impulses. Where did this come from? Where did the brain get the picture? Where did the brain decide that the rose should look like that? The brain has got little electronic firings going on, little biochemical things firing. There's no possible source for it to have a picture of a rose. Where could that possibly come from? There's just 100 pieces of evidence that says that this is not real, but much stronger is the belief that all humanity has that it is real. If we get an electron microscope and get up close, we'll discover that we're made of molecules. And between the molecules is great spaces. We're talking about now like spaces between galaxies as compared to the size of galaxies. And if we go into the molecule, we'll find atoms. And the molecule is full of great spaces with little atoms. We're talking about proportionate spaces like the size of the Earth and the size of the space between the Earth and Mars. We're talking like the difference between planets and the space, in the solar system. It's all space. We go inside the atom, and there are little sub-electrons and neutrons and things like this with space between them. So there's nothing to the atom. You go down to these little particles, and suddenly the scientists say, well, they're not really particles. They're not really particles. You can't call them particles. They're waves. And, what's waving? Well, where are they? Well, you can't say where they are. There's a probability that they're here or there. They say that you can't possibly determine where anything is. Or the whole thing tears apart on 100 bases that you can come up with. You see that this whole thing falls apart. I'm trying to give you... I recall when I was, many years ago, trying to get the idea of what Maya was, I heard what people were saying, although they didn't give examples like this, but they were saying that, what you see as a pine tree isn't just isn't a palm tree, it's a concept of a palm tree and stuff like this, and I kept wondering, well, what's really there, what does he mean by that? I know he doesn't really mean, he doesn't mean to be taken literally. Did that do something funny over there? I don't know. I think we just lost the tape recorder. Nope. Who cares? Somebody see who's at the door? Send him away. I recall that you know, I understood they were saying this wasn't real, but I had no idea of, you know, to what extent it wasn't real, or to what extent, you know, I mean, how close is it and stuff like that. And what I'm trying to give you is the sense that, you know, there's no reality to this at all. What we're talking about here is a void, is consciousness. What you're looking at is consciousness. What you're looking at is concepts that you have outpictured in consciousness. One of Joel's principles is that everything you experience is an outpicturing of your own consciousness. And that's what that means. What he's saying is it's all Maya. There's really two levels of creation that went on. God created, He created us, where us are spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings. We are expressions of God. We are individualizations of the consciousness which is God, but we are consciousness. And God did such a good job of creating us in its own image that we also are creative. And let me say, we are recreative. There is God's creation and there is our recreation. And this is the recreation. We are recreating in the sense that we make pictures that are pictures of our own concepts about things. This is the underlying statement or principle of all of Joel's work on the nature of error, which is also the nature of truth, of reality, of the Maya. I mean, the good and the bad. Joel's focus was on the nature of where error comes from: sickness, disease, poverty, all that sort of stuff. And of course, he was quite aware and says often that that's also the truth about good stuff. This picture that we see is a creation of our mind, of our consciousness. It is the function of the mind. Mind is just a tool that automatically, without any choice, it's unthinking, it has no capability of editing or rejecting. What mind does is outpicture what is the content of consciousness. What we're seeing is really like a mirror. What you're seeing is your consciousness. Now, there's only one mind. It's not like in dreams we each have our little individual mind, and you can have one dream and I can have a different dream, and they're totally distinct and disjoint from each other. But at this next level up, there is only one mind. And we all, as there's only one consciousness, with each of us as individual expressions of it, there is also only one mind. And we are all, you know, it is the repository in which all of us outpicture the content of our consciousness. So you not only, I mean, it's not like my consciousness is so detailed, my personal individual Lee consciousness is so detailed in particular that it you know, gets tides right and suns rises and sunsets and everything like that right. There is a universal human consciousness which is doing a lot of outpicturing. And one of the things that's in that universal human consciousness, of course, is the absolute rock-solid belief that this is real. But the universal human consciousness is outpicturing in mind, and I am outpicturing in mind, and you are outpicturing in mind, and very often, I mean, this is why it appears that we agree on what we see. I'm thinking I don't want to get into this mechanism yet. Yeah, I think not yet to go into how the nature of mind works. We may get to that, we may not. think we'll limit right now the class to the fact that it, however the mechanism is that makes this picture occur, that determines what picture it is that we see, nonetheless, it is Maya. It doesn't matter that it's created by human mind, or that it's created by my mind, or my intellect, my consciousness, or to what extent it's reflecting what I see, and to what extent am conscious of, and to what extent it's what you're conscious of, or anything like that. The point of this class is that it is all Maya. It is just an outpicturing of the spiritual reality. I will say that there is a reality which it is the outpicturing of. There is a reality, and what you're seeing is your concept of it. But your concept is the Maya, and your concept is the error is that we believe that our concept is the truth, and the truth is a spiritual reality which is inconceivable to the human intellect and to our five senses. Understand that, when I think about picturing something in my mind, I think about my mind as being in my brain, but understand that this whole being, that my body is part of the Maya. There is no physical body here. There is no brain here that has these thoughts in it. We tend to think that our mind is within our brain, that our consciousness is somehow localized inside our skull, and body, skull, that whole mechanism that I described a few minutes ago that creates this picture. All of that is also part of the Maya. The belief that there's a physical reality includes myself. This class is Maya. This whole class is Maya. This whole class is just an outpicturing of our consciousness of what class should be. We have an outpicturing of students. We have outpicturing of teacher. We have outpicturing of material as determined by all of our consciousnesses. That's what I meant by the class is determined by the people who are here. And it's a lie. There are no words being said. There is no speaker. There are no students. All there is an activity in consciousness right now. One activity in consciousness, a consciousness which is all one. There is, any concept that you have of student and teacher must be a lie, because that would imply duality. And there is no such thing as duality. All there is God. All there is consciousness. It's just one. I'll see if anything else comes that I can say about this. Helps us see that. Let's all close our eyes for a minute. Think of yourself, what you think of usually as yourself. It used to be that when I thought the idea of I, Lee, I have this sense of this space here. This thing is sort of seems to be determined by, the extent of it is determined by my skin. And that which is inside the skin is Lee, and that which is outside the skin is other. And part of the thing that's inside the skin is a brain, and my mind is inside this brain and inside this skull. And, that used to be my concept of Lee. Now, Robert suggested, and let's try this right now. Imagine your consciousness, not encased in a skull, but just encased in some sort of a plastic membrane or a balloon type membrane or something, so that this is your consciousness. And there's sort of an outer limit to your consciousness. It's, this part of it is my consciousness. And now let that consciousness begin to expand. So that now this consciousness is, let's say, as large as the room. And with this consciousness as large as the room, now I can see that this thing I thought was my body is inside my consciousness. So are all your bodies inside my consciousness. And all of you should be looking at this from your own viewpoint. Your body is inside your consciousness, and all these other bodies are inside your consciousness. And if you can let that balloon expand a bit more, why then the city is inside your consciousness. And just let it keep going, and let it keep expanding, and let it keep expanding until the edges of your consciousness, because all that's expanding is that line which you think of as the demarcation of your consciousness. Let that line, that outline that marks the edge of your consciousness, let that expand and expand and expand until it just dissolves into what you think of as space. And now, with your consciousness including all of space, we're at the point now where we see that my mind is, Margaret says, mind is space. And that's what this experience is right now. All this space is in my mind, is my mind. It's just within my consciousness. If it weren't within my consciousness, I wouldn't be conscious of it. So everything that I'm conscious of is within my consciousness. All of space, all of the planets, all of the universe, all of the people, all the details and minutiae, all the huge things, tides and moons and novas, and all of this is in my consciousness because I'm conscious of it. And the only thing that was a little messed up prior was that my concept of my consciousness had a box around it, had a limit around it, had skin around it. I used to think my consciousness was inside my brain or my head. When I'm here, all of it is in my consciousness. There is no space that is not in my consciousness. This is true for you too. There is no space that is not in your consciousness. You're in my consciousness and I'm in your consciousness. Our consciousnesses, in fact, are overlaying. They're all infinite. They're all one. It's God's consciousness. And there is a sense in which it is expressed as individual consciousness, but the fact is there is just this one consciousness which has my nature in it and has your nature in it and has the nature of all the beings and things in the universe. And it contains what we call space. Space is just the gap between the picturings of the out-picturings or the images we have of various things. We have an image of a planet here and we have an image of a planet there, and the fact that we have a here and a there is what's in between is space, we say, but really what we have is a concept in our consciousness, in our mind, of those two things, and they're distinct concepts. And they're really just our outpicturing of God's concepts. Just one space, all of us in the same space, in the same consciousness, in the same oneness. All of these things that we think we deal with, concepts within our consciousness, certainly no longer any reason to be afraid to fly. Airplanes are just in our consciousness. My body, my sense of Lee, is in this consciousness. So is my previous body in my previous life and the one before that. It's in this sense that I am an impersonal individualization of God's consciousness. I am not the person Lee. I am the consciousness. Lee is within my consciousness. That personality is within my consciousness. So is the one before that. So is the one after this. All these personalities, all these lifetimes, all here simultaneously within my consciousness. Only my concept of Lee and this lifetime and that I am Lee, only that limiting this picture. I think I'm Lee. I think I'm in this body. I think I'm in this lifetime. I think I am this physical being trying to have a spiritual experience right now. In fact, I am this spiritual oneness having material experiences. When I'm here in this space, there's also no time. Time was created by the Lee mind, as it was in a dream. What we call, when we're in the human experience, time seems like a horizontal thing unfolding. The three-dimensional experience that we have is moving through a fourth dimension called time. But the truth is that time is vertical, and all these times are here at once. The minute we get beyond the material mind, human mind experience, it's all one, it's all now. When we say be here now, it's impossible not to be. It's not true that God is here, as in here and not there. God is the very definition of here. God is here-ness. Here-ness is God. Here-ness is consciousness. All there is here. All this stuff within my consciousness is here in my consciousness. And all of time is here in my consciousness. And when the silence is here, you can experience this. The thing that prevents us from having this experience, this realization, is the non-stop thinking of that Lee entity, that babbler down there, which is within my consciousness. One little particle of my consciousness, one lifetime. All the thoughts and chatter down there this oneness, this reality, the thinking, the conversation in my head, the babbling, the labeling, the worrying, the talking about, the chatter about all these things in Maya are what keep me locked to Maya. The listening to other people's thoughts in this mind that are being transmitted along with mine, sent out and brought in and sent out and brought in, all of us constantly reassuring each other that this is true, constantly reinforcing the lie, constantly reinforcing the belief. The Maya is generated and sustained by all the minds that are believing it. My mind receives from all of you the belief in it, and I transmit it, and you receive from me the belief in it, and you transmit it, and we maintain this constant belief in all these, in the reality of Maya. There is nothing else to it except the self-sustaining belief that it's real. Remember, mind just outpictures what's in consciousness, what we believe. And there is nothing sustaining Maya at all except the continual self-sustaining belief of everybody that they're transmitting and rebroadcasting back and forth to each other that it's real. And what I want you to know from up here in this space, looking down at that game, at that Leelaa, is that that is also Maya. That which is sustaining the Maya is part of Maya. It's not there. There never was anybody to think those thoughts. There never was anybody to transmit them. There never was anybody to receive them. Peace, be still, and know that I am God, the I that is all of us. I am the only reality of everyone and everything. Let's just be quiet for a few minutes now, and then we'll take a break. Now, when you open your eyes, stay in this space where all of this is within your consciousness. Look at it as an illusion. Look at it as a picture in your consciousness. If your mind can stay silent, if you cannot think and just look, you might see this. I'm just going to add a couple of things. I think we went as far as we can go with that picture. The work for the year is to get to where we can realize this more and more frequently in our life until eventually we go through life aware of this. I asked Robert, what do you see? And he says, I see the same things that you see, but I never believe it. Never does he believe it. It's sort of like when you're driving across the desert and you see the water on the road. You never park your car and go get a weather report and find out whether the place really flooded or something. You just drive on through it. You just never for a second believe that that water on the road is water. You know it's just a mirage out there in the hot desert. You just keep right on driving. And Robert was that way about all of this. I also think of it as if you're at this movie and if somebody in the back would turn up the lights enough that you got a little bit of a glinter off the screen so you could just see a little bit of the silver behind the screen, it would just bust the whole illusion. And then you could sit there and you could watch the movie and see what's going on. But you would always see the screen. And if you always saw the screen, then the emotion and all that wouldn't get caught up in it, and you would, and they couldn't get $10 for you going there. But that's the way Robert was 24 hours a day. Robert had this body that supposedly had Parkinson's disease. And I was with Robert 3 times a week for 5 years, and including a couple hours on Saturday mornings, we'd have breakfast and go sit in the park. And his gift to me was, with no words, was that I know that he knew that that was not his body. It never occurred to him that he had Parkinson's disease. That was no more his body than mine was. It was just part of the Leelaa, just part of the game, just part of the show that's going on. And it had nothing to do with him. And so, of course, there was no emotion, and there was no drama, and there was no any of that going on there. 4 things that those of you who've done the script work have done your 4 lists of things that you love and hate and fear and desire. See, those are the lists of those things in the Maya that you're invested in. Those are the things which are preventing you from having this vision. You're invested in the things you love, or afraid of those things you fear, or whatever, and all of this emotion, all of this drama is based on things on that 4 list. That's what's keeping you locked into this. When you see anything on one of those lists, you react. You immediately have this feeling of great love, or great fear, or great this or that, or lust, or whatever, and you immediately react, and you're just sucked in, you're part of the movie now. And that's it until you get away from it. And these are the things that are keeping you from seeing it, from seeing the truth. Robert's mind was quiet. Rashneesh said the same thing. He said, I'm sitting in my room, and somebody comes in and says something to me, and they say, hello, Bhagwan, and I say, hello, Bhagwan, hello. That was the first thought. He was sitting there absolutely silent. When somebody talks, then there needs to be a Bhagwan. So he says inside, hello, Bhagwan. The talking mechanism gets up, the answer comes forth, but in between, he was not Bhagwan. He was the universe in which Bhagwan was sitting. It's not a matter of me sitting here with my mind silent. It is a matter of when my mind is silent, then Lee is sitting there, and it's part of the picture on the screen. It's an image in mind. It has nothing to do with me any more than you sitting there. It's these things that we're attached to, that we have investment in, that keeps us locked in, and the fact that our mind babbles incessantly. The talking of the mind, the constant chatter, is the sole source of the illusion that there is a you as an entity. That endless dialogue is the personality, that is the ego, that is you. And if you have a gap in the thought, there's a gap in you, the small you, the individual personal sense. And as the gap gets wider, the gap in you and eventually gets wider, and eventually the pause is long enough and you see, that wasn't me. And then it goes the other way, and now it's mostly not you, and occasionally you are performing there. Occasionally you get sucked in, but it goes the other way. And the transition that we're moving towards is the transition of being in the gap all the time. Now, the reason for the Script Kid in Fantasyland work is that I'm sure now that Barbara's students who'd been studying with her for 25 years all had the experience of oneness. But they didn't have those lists emptied. And they kept getting snapped back into the Maya, snapped back into the material stuff, snapped back into these things in which they had emotional investment because they weren't done yet. They kept getting pulled back into it. And I'm sure that that is the reason that the whole Script Kid in Fantasyland teaching came about. And Barbara was a very high lady, and she had that too. She had to do the work herself. So that's what it's about. The process is to detach from this. Robert says we need to be passionless, which sounds like such a sad place to be, such a miserable place to be passionless. You don't have the neat things that you love and have great passion for and stuff like that. What would life be like? And Robert says, well, when you get rid of passion and all that stuff, you wind up in the default. Bliss. Constant, continuous, eternal ecstasy. So that's what happens for giving up the passion. So, so it's not that bad a deal. I ran across, Robert has 4 principles that he used to teach as the 4 principles of Jnana Marga, and it's, Jnana Marga is the path of wisdom, the path to enlightenment through wisdom. And, Joel says that everything we experience is an outpicturing of our own consciousness. And Margaret says, that mind is just a picture, that it's an outpicturing of your consciousness, that everything you see is mind, not really space. And Robert's first principle is everything is a projection or a manifestation of the mind. With no mind, there is no universe. And so that's our principle for this year, for this week. Keep that in mind. Everything is a projection or manifestation of the mind. You can write it down later. I'll leave this out. Everything is a projection or a manifestation of the mind. With no mind, there is no universe. Get that? No universe with no mind. Do you get that they're synonymous? Mind, Maya, universe, all the same thing. Okay, we're not going to, obviously, this is not a workshop class like the last one was. We don't want to get the intellects involved. We don't want to ask questions and get an answer and immediately think of 10 more questions. We do not want to get the intellect involved at all. There is absolutely nothing I've said that can be, that is rational, or that is true, or that can be grasped or reasoned with or dealt with rationally. So we're not going to do workshop type questions. If you do want to ask a question, as in to explore an area or ask for more exploration in a particular area, write the question down this week and bring it next Sunday. And next Sunday, for the first part of the class, we will answer the questions and see where they take us. And if they that may be the class, or if not, we'll go on to wherever we're going. But we'll do questions that way. This is more in the tradition of infinite way style teaching, and also in the same way that Robert taught, and the same way that Bhagwan taught. Bhagwan taught for an hour and a half, and then the next day he would answer 5 or 6 questions, and Robert would he would talk, and then he would ask for questions, and so we'll do it that way this time. But please feel free to bring 1 or 2 questions, in the sense of, can you say more about this, or would we talk about this, or does this, or is this what you were talking about, or does this relate to that, or that kind of question, that would allow us to explore a little more deeply something like this, which is, unfortunately, totally inexpressible. So I think that's it for today. We'll see what happens from here. Thank you.